Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You know, I was thinking a lot about what we could talk about in the short time we have, and I thought that there's a moment on the new record that gave me an idea that will allow us to kind of just chat and nerd out for a bit, and it's this moment. So, I fucking love that moment.
I love that song, actually.
Yeah.
But this song, Spit Out the Bone, was a beast of a song because it was really kind of all over the place. And the direction was not centered really in one place. And really, Lars had the vision. He had the vision of this piece of music that he could hear before any of us could hear it. And it was a frustrating journey for Greg Fiddleman and myself because even that little moment of bass there, you know, it was like trying different things. I mean, there must be 30 other ideas that I came up with on the sideline at home before it sort of came down to that.
Right.
Lars liked that the best. That's, you know, when Lars is passionate about something, he's gonna get what he wants and he's determined and he'll fight for it. So it's great to hear now, and it's great to know that it all works together. And you know, it's definitely one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. It's
kind of like that wild child that you have that's all over the place, and then he grows up and really gets his shit together. And this song, to me, is that child.
Put him on the end of the, put that child on the end of the record.
Right.
And let him run away. Let me share a little anecdote with you. I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of music. I gravitated to metal young, and it was kind of my music, you know, and I was a bass player. I played in bands, and I kind of got bored with my role, I think. And so I got into Jacko. I started listening to Paul Chambers. I started listening to Dave Holland and a lot of the jazz and fusion guys because I like wanted to have a bigger role in the music rather than just doubling.
Right.
You know, and so question for you is, what is the role of the bass in metal in your opinion?
That's a great question. On this particular album, what we explored, when I say we, really Greg Fiddleman, our producer, and myself, is we explored the art of simplicity. And instead of doubling the guitar note for note, we went for a more simplistic approach in finding a rhythm that could find its balance within the riff. And of course, there are certain moments where you're going to double up, but then there's also certain pulses that you can do to complement the rhythm guitar. And you find that balance between the kick drum and James's rhythm part. And we played around with that a lot.
For sure.
And I always try to think about my role as a bass player in hard rock, heavy metal music as like a heavy bag, you know. It's like, you know, having you feel the instrument, and that's why I've always loved, you know, like Black Sabbath's music, because you hear it, you feel it, and it's got a certain presence and a personality in the music, and I tried to establish some of that with this new record. Yeah,
I hear this in Spit Out the Bone. So you mentioned Geezer.
So, yeah, Geezer. Well, again, you know, wonderful Lars here. Lars really also had a vision of the sound, and that was exciting to us. Let's take it back. Let's get into really nice fuzz tone, you know, giving it that personality and not putting a sort of a distinct time on it. And I love those tones. I mean, they're timeless, you know. You hear it a lot more in not just metal music, but even in, you know, alternative music. You know, you've got that nice fuzz tone. What we did which is very interesting on this album, is we did almost like the blindfold test, where we would take a section of a song and we would try 6 different basses, and we didn't know which ones they were. You know, they were sort of as a blindfold thing, and it could be a P bass, could be the ESPs, the Warwicks, whatever. And there was a specific bass, which was actually a 5-string Warwick, which actually won out. And that's interesting because our producer doesn't generally like 5 strings, and he definitely doesn't like active electronic basses.
Yeah.
But the test is the test.
Yeah.
And certain instruments have a personality.
Sure. The fan in me has to ask the question, and maybe it's also the bass player in me once again. Is there a particular moment in the set which you always look forward to? Like, is there a moment where it's just like you can feel it coming and it feels like some kind of peak moment for
well,
you?
it depends. It depends on the set list that night.
Yeah.
You know, I always enjoy playing Orion because I think it's a song that hits the fans a certain way, and of course, you know, it's a great respectful moment to Cliff Burton, and that holds a lot of how do you say? It's just a very positive experience with our fans, and I love seeing that. But for me, right now, where we're at, the new songs, it's kind of cool when you can test your new songs and see if the response is there, and we're getting the response.
It's awesome.
That we like.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my favorite moments on the record, and this probably reveals kind of where my sensibilities lie, is when the melodicism in the guitars come out in songs like "Moth into Flame" is a great example.
Yeah.
Does that free things up for you in any way? I mean, rather than like there's a great diversity on this record, right? That melodicism I guess kind of opens the sound up a bit.
What we do is one of the great things we do in this band is no matter whose riff it is, and obviously this album is really dominated by James Hetfield's riffs and his ideas, which is great. In my mind, in my heart, James can never write a bad riff. You know, he's almost always on. But we jam these ideas. You know, Lars and James and I, we actually, spend time in jam on these songs, and I think that's where a lot of that kind of starts to blossom, you know. And then James is really such a great composer, and bringing, the concept of 2 guitars, 3 guitars, whatever, in turning it into that, building it. It's like building a house, just the guitar production alone. Even like getting back into A440 tuning, which a lot of people may not know what that is, doesn't matter, but
standard
tuning, classic.
Yeah.
You know? And I believe that it gives James's voice a certain angst and a certain energy to it.
Right. That
if you go in a half step down or your detuning isn't always there because it's a little more comfortable.
Allows you to play those faster parts too, maybe with a bit more clarity,
Sounds
right?
tighter.
A bit more attack.
Yeah, they're clear, and in the vocal is also tighter in clear, but it has that edge to it. All these little things are really, I think, important to where we're at now and how things are starting to blossom and grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to make this observation, but what really struck me about this album is that I can hear so much of the different elements of Metallica's sound and songwriting approach and tempos and feels that speaks to almost like the entire history of Metallica. There's a moment where I'm like, and I'm not saying this is like a nostalgia thing. It's just like, that's straight Kill 'Em All, and then it's just like, that's straight Black Album.
Right.
And Death Magnetic to me as a listener didn't have that same quality, and this record kind of has this almost like has this sort of full quality to it.
Yeah, because I feel that in a lot of ways the music has found its place. Things take time. Metallica takes a long time, but I agree. There's definitely one thing that's very important about all this music on this album. It all grooves. Yeah. And I believe that Lars and I have grown as a rhythm section. I believe the challenges that we've taken, from those challenges we grow. And I'm feeling like if I look back to 2003 and where we're at today, and I notice the tempos, there's a stronger pocket and groove, and there's no shortage of creativity, as you said, but at the same time, we have so many riffs, and sometimes for Lars, I know it's important to get get them all in there. And that was the big thing about Death Magnetic and such long songs. Is like, well, there's so many great riffs.
Yeah.
we gotta find a home for them all.
You and I both know documentary filmmaking, it's hard to edit, right?
Yeah, it is.
Same applies to music. Rob, I want to thank you for the time, man.